there's a question that modern engineers still can't answer with complete precision. How did people without machines, without steel, and in many cases, without even the wheel, build structures that have survived for thousands of years, and that would challenge even the most advanced construction crews today? This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's archaeology, physics, and a reminder of the humility modern science is still learning to have when faced with the achievements of the ancient world. There are 7 places scattered across the planet that carry this question in every stone. And what makes these sites even more unsettling is that the more experts study them, the harder it becomes to explain, in simple terms, how they were built, why they were built, and what ultimately happened to the people who constructed them. The first of these places lies in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, on the island of Pohnpei in Micronesia. It's called Nan Madol, and when you see it for the first time, it looks like a kind of Venice built from black stone in the middle of nowhere. The site consists of 92 artificial islets connected by canals, constructed from massive basalt columns weighing between 5 and 50 tons each. The total amount of material used in the construction is estimated at roughly 750,000 tons, a volume comparable to that of the Great Pyramid of Giza. And that's where the mystery begins. The Great Pyramid was built in ancient Egypt, supported by a population numbering in the millions, along with metal tools, draft animals, and an economy organized on an enormous scale. But on Pohnpei, during the period when Nan Madol was being constructed, the population was no more than about 25,000 people. No metal, no wheel, no oxen or horses, and the nearest quarry was on the other side of the island, separated by mountains and dense jungle. Modern studies suggest that the basalt columns were most likely transported by water, suspended beneath bamboo rafts, and raised using ramps made from palm wood. Technically, it was possible, but it required an extraordinary level of logistical organization, coordinated collective labor, and patience that most modern societies would struggle to reproduce. The main phases of construction took place between the 12th and 13th centuries, and the walls are still standing today, having endured tropical storms for more than 1,000 years. But Nan Madol reveals something beyond engineering. It reveals power. The dynasty that ruled the island used the city as a mechanism of control. Local chiefs were required to move to the artificial islets, where there was no fresh water and no farmland. Every drop of drinking water had to be transported from the mainland in canoes controlled by the ruler. If a chief ever considered rebelling, the ruler could simply cut off the supplies. Architecture became a weapon of political control, and this concept was being used on Pohnpei centuries before any European philosopher ever put it into writing. Just a few feet above the ground, on another continent, a different story had been buried under prejudice for more than a century. In southern Africa, Great Zimbabwe is one of the largest dry stone structures on the entire continent. Its walls rise as high as 36 feet, built from granite blocks fitted together with such precision that you can't even slip the blade of a knife between the stones. And all of it was constructed without mortar, without metal, and without blueprints drawn on paper. When a German geologist arrived at the ruins in 1871, he refused to believe that Africans could have built something like this. He declared it to be the palace of the Queen of Sheba. For the next 100 years, colonial science searched for almost any other explanation. Phoenicians, Arabs, even lost Romans. British Rhodesia officially banned the publication of studies linking Great Zimbabwe to local African peoples. Archaeologists who insisted on the truth were fired and lost their funding. The truth was only officially recognized after independence in 1980. The newly independent country even adopted the name of the ruins. Today, there is no doubt that the city was built by the ancestors of the Shona people between the 10th and 15th centuries. It was the capital of a powerful trading state that controlled the flow of gold and ivory to the Indian Ocean. Arab merchants knew about the city long before Europeans arrived, describing it as the center of a powerful kingdom south of the Sahara. The construction technique used by its builders was both elegant and incredibly precise. Local granite has a unique property. When heated by fire and then rapidly cooled with water, it can split into relatively regular slabs. This process, known as thermal splitting, requires neither metal tools nor machinery. It requires a deep understanding of the material, patience, and fire. Great Zimbabwe proves that advanced civilizations existed in sub-Saharan Africa, long before the arrival of any European. And the greatest obstacle to recognizing that truth wasn't a lack of evidence. It was the refusal to accept what the evidence was already showing. Meanwhile, while this was happening in Africa, deep beneath the Mediterranean, entire cities were waiting to be rediscovered. The Greek historian Herodotus described the port city of Heracleion as Egypt's gateway to the ancient world. For centuries, scholars dismissed his account as fantasy, something comparable to the myth of Atlantis. Then, in 2000, French underwater archaeologist Frank Gaudio descended into the murky waters of Aboukir Bay, off the coast of Egypt. Just 33 feet beneath the surface, he found the entire city. Temples, 5-meter-tall statues of pharaohs, 64 ships, 700 anchors. Everything had been preserved beneath layers of mud and algae. A black granite stele confirmed the location's identity. It was Heracleion, exactly where Herodotus had said it was. The city most likely sank in the 7th century AD, possibly due to an earthquake combined with the liquefaction of the sandy soil beneath the weight of its buildings. Not far away, along the coast of Italy, the Roman city of Baiae experienced the opposite process, and just as slowly. It was the resort of the Roman elite, frequented by Julius Caesar and Emperor Nero. Baiae gradually sank because of the volcanic activity of the Phlegraean Fields, a supervolcano that still causes the ground in the region to rise and fall today, in a process geologists call bradyseism. Marble columns and mosaic floors still remain remarkably intact beneath the sea. These two cases changed the way modern archaeology is conducted. Sonar, 3D mapping, technical diving, and digital imaging have transformed the search for the past into something increasingly close to precision engineering, and they raised an inevitable question. How many other cities described in ancient texts are still waiting to be discovered at the bottom of seas that have never been properly explored? On the other side of the world, the Incas solved a completely different problem with a solution that still amazes infrastructure experts today. Without the wheel, without writing, and without horses, they built the largest road network of the pre-modern world. The Capac Ñan, the Great Inca Road System, stretches for approximately 40,000 kilometers across mountains, jungles, and deserts, crossing what are now 6 different countries. For comparison, the entire Roman road network at the height of the empire totaled around 32,000 kilometers. And the Romans had iron tools, massive slave labor forces, and centuries of continuous construction. The Incas accomplished even more in roughly 100 years, under conditions that seem almost impossible. Their roads crossed the Andes at elevations above 5,000 meters, where the oxygen level is roughly half of what it is at sea level. In the Atacama Desert, where sand can bury any trail within hours, stone markers still point the way. In the Amazon, the ground was paved with tree trunks. Across deep gorges, suspension bridges were woven from the fibers of a grass called ichu. These bridges were strong enough to support the weight of entire armies. When Spanish conquistadors first encountered one of these bridges stretching across a 300-meter deep chasm, they refused to cross it. Inca messengers crossed them every single day, carrying heavy loads without breaking their stride. Without writing, information traveled through a network of messengers known as chasqui, who relayed messages in shifts for up to 240 kilometers a day. Faster than medieval Europe's horseback postal system, and without a single horse. Some of these roads are still in use today, 5 centuries later. Modern highways built in the same regions can deteriorate within just a few years. In Turkey's Cappadocia region, an accidental discovery in 1963 revealed that the ancient engineering found on the surface had an equally astonishing underground counterpart. A local resident decided to expand the basement of his home, knocked down a wall, and discovered a dark passage leading deep underground. That passage led to Derinkuyu, an underground city with 18 levels beneath the surface, capable of sheltering up to 20,000 people, along with their animals and food supplies. Each level contained rooms, schools, chapels, olive oil presses, stables, and even an area designated for the dead. 15,000 ventilation shafts provided fresh air to depths of up to 85 meters. The entrances to each level could be sealed from the inside with massive stone discs weighing nearly half a ton, making them virtually impossible to move from the outside. At the center of each disc was a small opening through which defenders could attack intruders with spears. The passageways were built low and extremely narrow, forcing attackers to move forward bent over, one at a time, eliminating any advantage in numbers. The material that made all of this possible was volcanic tuff, the soft rock that makes up much of Cappadocia. When freshly excavated, it is relatively easy to carve, but it gradually hardens when exposed to air, eventually becoming almost as strong as concrete. Whenever an enemy approached, the entire population could disappear underground, seal the entrances with stone, and continue living as if nothing had happened. Invaders could walk across the surface without ever realizing that 20,000 people were directly beneath their feet. Historians believe the city was still actively used as late as the 6th century AD, when Christians in the region sought refuge from Arab invasions. However, the earliest levels may have been carved much earlier, possibly by the Hittites during the 2nd millennium BC. Geological surveys have revealed that similar underground cavities exist throughout Cappadocia, and no one knows exactly how many other hidden cities may still be buried beneath the region's homes and fields. In Sudan, more than 200 pyramids rise from the sands of the Nubian desert. These are the pyramids of Meroe, built between approximately 800 BC and AD 350, as royal tombs for the Kingdom of Kush. The Kushite kingdom was not simply an imitator of Egypt, it was its conqueror. During the 8th century BC, Kushite kings seized control of the Nile Valley and ruled Egypt as its 25th dynasty of pharaohs, building more pyramids than all their Egyptian predecessors combined. Today, the pyramids of Meroe face a different kind of threat. The civil war in Sudan has brought preservation efforts to a halt, leaving these structures even more vulnerable to erosion, shifting sands, and accelerated deterioration. What political violence had already begun in the 19th century, when an Italian adventurer named Giuseppe Ferlini used dynamite to blow up the tops of dozens of pyramids in search of gold, is now being compounded by the forced abandonment caused by armed conflict. A heritage that survived for thousands of years may not survive this generation. Finally, in the central Mediterranean, the island of Malta is home to some of the oldest stone structures on Earth. The Guntija complex on the island of Gozo dates back to approximately 3,600 BC. That makes it about 1,000 years older than the pyramids of Giza and roughly 1,500 years older than Stonehenge. Limestone blocks weighing up to 50 tons were positioned by people who had neither metal tools nor the wheel. Archaeologists discovered stone spheres near the site, suggesting that the builders may have used them as rollers to move the massive blocks. Inside the temples are altars bearing traces of sacrifices, figurines depicting female figures, and intricate spiral decorations. The acoustics of the underground Hal Saflieni complex are so precise that a deep male voice resonates through the stone walls, creating a physical vibration that can be felt throughout the body. Inside this complex, carved into the rock across 3 levels, archaeologists discovered the remains of approximately 7,000 people. And then, around 2500 BC, everything suddenly stopped. The civilization that built these temples disappeared. There are no clear signs of warfare, no evidence of an epidemic, no traces of a mass exodus. One of the leading theories is that deforestation for fuel and construction depleted the island's soil, eventually making it impossible to feed the population. Another theory is equally disturbing. The temple culture may have collapsed because building these sacred structures became more important than producing enough food. When new inhabitants eventually arrived on the island, they found nothing but the stone skeleton of a civilization that had vanished without leaving behind any instructions for those who came after them. These 7 places, separated by thousands of miles and thousands of years, share something that goes far beyond stone and engineering. Each one reveals that the human past was far more complex, sophisticated, and diverse than conventional history books often lead us to believe. Nan Madol demonstrates that it was possible to build an entire metropolis in the middle of the ocean without a single machine. Great Zimbabwe proves that prejudice can erase evidence more effectively than any natural disaster. Heracleion and Baiae show that ancient texts sometimes described reality with an accuracy that took us centuries to fully recognize. The Inca road system surpassed everything Rome built in scale, despite being created without the wheel or a system of writing. Derinkuyu proves that fear can inspire engineering solutions capable of surviving for thousands of years. Meroe serves as a warning that a single man with dynamite can destroy more history than 1,000 years of neglect. And Malta reminds us that even a civilization capable of creating something truly extraordinary can disappear completely when it loses the balance between what it builds and what it needs to survive. The technology these civilizations mastered wasn't based on circuits or algorithms. It was the technology of materials, time, collective effort, and knowledge passed down from one generation to the next. We know how to send signals to Mars, yet we still can't fully explain how islanders transported hundreds of thousands of tons of stone through tropical jungles. Maybe what was lost wasn't just the technology itself. Maybe what we lost was the willingness to work toward a goal that the person building it would never live to see completed.